Have you ever seen a woman as happy as her? Her husband, T.O., is the CEO of an entertainment company. Her son is well-behaved and understanding. Even though they have been married for almost 10 years, their love is as passionate as a new couple. Today, when her husband came back from a business trip, a lip balm fell out of his pocket. Seeing the pink lotus color on her hand, she didn't mind, simply thinking that her husband had bought the wrong lipstick. Before going to work, her husband reminded her to drive carefully, worrying about her catching a cold, so he personally put a scarf on her. Life seemed perfect, but this very scarf shattered everything. On the scarf, she found a strand of yellow hair. From its length and color, she was certain it wasn't hers. Her mind began to race. Even during patient consultations, she couldn't focus and even suspected her patients. Gradually, she became sensitive to all women with yellow hair. At that moment, a girl approached, initiating a conversation. What Sun Woo noticed most was her yellow hair, identical to the strand on the scarf. From her, Sun Woo learned that her husband should have gotten off work at 5, but only came home at 7. This statement made Sun Woo even more suspicious of her husband. That evening when her husband got off work, Sun Woo deliberately mentioned the girl she had met that afternoon. T.O. replied very quickly and didn't seem to be lying. She could only confide her suspicions to her close friend Yi-rim, but Sun Woo also had the feeling that Yi-rim could be the other woman. Her husband, Ji-hyuk, was also a longtime friend of her husband. He often seemed to insinuate that his wife wasn't as good as Sun Woo, which made Yi-rim feel guilty, but she just laughed it off. Sun Woo's unease didn't end there. She often secretly checked her husband's phone, but there was nothing unusual. Her colleague Myung-suk even told her that she was being too sensitive, that it was just a stray hair. How could she suspect her husband? While examining a patient, Sun Woo was distracted by the clock hanging on the wall. According to the secretary, her husband got off work at 5. What could he have been doing for those 2.5 hours? Sun Woo also took a day off early to handle some personal matters, following her husband's car to see where he was going. Stopping by the roadside, she suddenly saw a couple arguing and realized that the woman was her patient, Hyun-seo. Although she wanted to go out and help, seeing Hyun-seo's husband, Sun Woo just turned a blind eye and continued to follow. Unexpectedly, T.O. turned onto the road to the geriatric hospital. Entering, she learned that he had bought flowers to visit his sick mother. T.O. was also surprised to see his wife without notice. He explained that he had been visiting his mother frequently lately because she was sick. Sun Woo also apologized to him for misunderstanding and following him. They embraced, trying to forget everything that had happened. But immediately afterwards, Sun Woo was shocked by the nurse's statement that she had never been there before, but had come with her husband today. It turned out that he had lied to Sun Woo. This further confirmed to her that her husband was cheating on her 200%. That night, she could only pretend that nothing had happened. After all, she had to find evidence before she could accuse him. That night, T.O. said he had to go out because the chairman of his high school alumni association was holding a party. He was the most powerful person here, so he should go and hopefully get his support. Sun Woo realized that she knew his wife, and she was invited, so she went with him. Before entering the ceremony, T.O. warned Sun Woo very carefully, hoping that she wouldn't make any mistakes at the party, because he needed the chairman's help for this project, and couldn't afford any mistakes. At the party, T.O. started talking to Chairman Byung Kyu, but nobody seemed to care about his presence. Seeing her husband's weakness, she was also powerless, and had to step forward to help him. Fortunately, she was quite close to the chairman's wife, Hyo-young, and they talked quite comfortably. She also mentioned that she hoped he would pay attention to her husband's work, so he listened. Taking advantage of Sun Woo's presence, Hyo-young introduced her daughter, Da Kyung. But Sun Woo wasn't really paying attention, as she was thinking about other things. When she went out to the balcony to relax, she remembered that the waitress was Hyun-seo and asked about her. She had been unable to help Hyun-seo last time, and Sun Woo felt a little guilty. But the sedative and her medical records had to follow the rules of the hospital. She couldn't sell medication without knowing the reason. That night, Sun Woo tossed and turned, unable to sleep. How could she catch her husband red-handed when she already had so many suspicions? She even checked which cameras had the best stealth recording capabilities. With no other options, Sun Woo could only turn to Hyun-seo for help. Sun Woo promised to help her with the medication, All she had to do was follow her husband. From early morning, Hyonesio started following Tio for a long time, without him realizing. Of course, since it wasn't his wife, he didn't care. After waiting in the car for 3 hours, Sun Woo saw him coming out of an apartment with a woman. Even a glimpse of her back showed her long, brown hair. Upon receiving this news, Sun Woo felt numb. Today was her husband's birthday party, but he could still meet his lover. Looking at the happy birthday cake in front of her, she hated that she couldn't smash it. After arriving at her husband's birthday party, Sun Woo pretended nothing had happened. She asked for Tio's car keys to go get her camera, because she had heard that he was hiding something in the trunk. She searched for a long time, but couldn't find anything suspicious like Hyonesio had said. Just as she was about to give up, she discovered a secret compartment in the trunk. Sun Woo dug out some disgusting items that her husband had hidden. She even found a backup phone. Turning it on, she saw a picture of a young girl. Looking closer, wasn't this the daughter of Mrs. Hyoyoung? Looking into the distance, Sun Woo couldn't believe that T.O. had chosen such a young girl. Looking through the photo album made her even more shocked. The photos were of all her friends, colleagues, and close relatives, but they were all partying with T.O. and Da Kyung as a couple. Searching through messages, Sun Woo found a message from Myung Suk to her husband, saying she had gotten off work to follow him. It turned out that because of this, T.O. knew Sun Woo was following him, so he went to visit his mother at the hospital. Now she understood how fake the world was. Sun Woo picked up her surgical scissors and slowly walked into the party. Looking at her fake friends, Sun Woo hated that she couldn't stab them first. She stood in front of T.O. and coldly stabbed him in the chest in front of everyone, but it was just an illusion in her mind. T.O. stood up to make a speech about everyone's attendance at his birthday party, especially his devoted wife who was dedicated to their family. Knowing this was a good opportunity, Sun Woo stepped out and kissed him directly in front of the crowd, also to intimidate Da Kyung, the other woman. Of course, both T.O. and Da Kyung were uncomfortable with this action, but they couldn't do anything about it. During the party, they were even holding each other's hands, making Sun Woo even more bitter. Everything was going well until Ji Hyuk started getting drunk. Then, he described how great Sun Woo was, while T.O. was cheating on her without shame. This caused a serious fight. When bandaging T.O.'s wound, Sun Woo casually took off his ring. Even without asking, she could guess what had happened. Pretending to be really tired, T.O. refused to take her home, saying there were too many guests. Sun Woo could only look at her husband with despair. That night, T.O. followed Da Kyung, hoping to appease her anger. The reason was because he had seen him and his wife being intimate, and he couldn't do anything about it. With his slippery tongue, he managed to weasel his way out of it, and divorce was just a matter of time. T.O. said he no longer had feelings for Sun Woo. He could only wait for this project to be successful before he could divorce her. Unexpectedly, he received a notification from the secretary saying that the Chinese side couldn't invest in his project. So T.O. was forced to postpone his divorce from his wife because he still relied on her a lot. Sun Woo invited her friend Myung Suk home to talk. Seeing her unusual attitude, Sun Woo felt something was wrong. Sure enough, she confronted Myung Suk, asking why she had colluded with those people to deceive her. Myung Suk also apologized profusely, explaining that she had no choice but to do so. Unexpectedly, Sun Woo said to just keep things as they were. Now wasn't the time to divorce T.O., because if she did, there would be a lot of trouble. That night, Sun Woo managed to find Da Kyung's social media profile. Seeing the hand in the cover photo, she immediately recognized it as her husband's, and it matched his ring. Looking at her sleeping son, Sun Woo felt heartbroken. The boy was looking forward to his summer camp with his dad for months. Would her broken happiness make him suffer? The next morning, T.O. and his son started preparing for the summer camp, while Sun Woo went to the hospital as usual. She represented the management group in firing a doctor who had been drinking heavily for months after the loss of a loved one, something that wasn't allowed, no matter how much grief he felt. Severely criticized, the doctor was furious and cursed her, saying she would one day meet the same misfortune. Outside, Sun Woo was surprised to see Da Kyung at the hospital. Whether it was intentional or accidental, she came for a checkup. During the examination, Sun Woo asked about Da Kyung's relationship frequency, and she was surprised to hear that Da Kyung was seeing a married man. even though both knew each other's marital status. Da Kyung could only confide in Sun Woo about this secretly, as the man's wife didn't know. During the urine test, Sun Woo discovered that Da Kyung was pregnant. Sun Woo was the one who was most shocked, but she had to calm herself down and inform Da Kyung. It seemed that their secret affair couldn't be hidden forever. Myung-suk, Sun Woo's best friend, also learned about this because she was at the obstetrics department. Sun Woo decided to prohibit Da Kyung from having an abortion at the hospital due to professional ethics. She also asked Myung-suk to report this to Teo. Myung-suk was surprised by Sun Woo's actions, thinking that if Da Kyung had an abortion, Sun Woo would still have a chance with Teo. Meanwhile, Teo, unaware of the situation, was still organizing the summer camp with the kids. Thanks to Sun Woo's resignation speech, the company's chairman started favoring Teo, unaware that his daughter was having an affair with him. Because Hyun-seo had helped her before, Sun Woo decided to visit her. However, when she got there, she witnessed Hyun-seo's boyfriend abusing her. As a strong and powerful woman, Sun Woo stepped in, blocking the man from entering the door and declaring that she could crush him anytime due to her authority. After being rescued, Hyun-seo advised Sun Woo to give Teo a chance, as he might only be captivated by her youthful beauty for a while. When picking up Teo and her son from the summer camp, Sun Woo prepared a lavish meal. However, she didn't know that another man was watching Teo and Da Kyung's relationship. The next day, while sitting with this man, Sun Woo said directly that Teo was having an affair, wasn't he? She said that if it was just about temporary beauty, he should admit it, and she could overlook it, and they could live together as friends. However, Teo argued that he wasn't having any relationship. Sun Woo was helpless, so she just admitted to being wrong, claiming she might be making up a plan. While Teo was alone, he received a breakup call from Da Kyung, blaming him for not divorcing Sun Woo, making her feel like a sugar baby. Teo had to explain himself to Da Kyung. When Sun Woo went downstairs, Teo's phone rang in his pocket, and it was a call from Myung-suk. Thanks to this call, Teo learned that Da Kyung was pregnant, which made him incredibly worried. Teo quickly went to see Da Kyung and insisted on not giving up the baby. He promised her that he would settle things with Sun Woo in 2 months so that they could be together soon. That night, Teo pretended as if nothing had happened while Sun Woo tried to probe him. But it seemed he had no intention of breaking up with Da Kyung. Teo recalled his conversation with Myung-suk, where he lamented that he couldn't live without Sun Woo, but also needed Da Kyung. Both women had unique qualities that attracted Teo, but loving them both at the same time wasn't easy for him. It was truly a hardship for Teo. The next day, Sun Woo decided to visit the law office. Currently, Teo didn't know about her intention to divorce, which was advantageous for her. If she found proof of his affair, she would have an advantage in asset division. However, the lawyer advised her not to spy on her husband's private life because she could be countersued in court. If she got a self-recorded video, Sun Woo would have a greater advantage. Thinking about Teo being intimate with Da Kyung, Sun Woo felt nauseous. Yoon Kai, a colleague of hers, advised that if she could salvage the marriage, it would be better not to divorce. When she met Hyun-seo again, who had helped her before, Sun Woo decided to side with her in this battle. One day, while visiting a bookstore, Sun Woo accidentally met Da Kyung. Although it was hard to avoid her because of the doctor-patient relationship, she heard Da Kyung say that she wanted to keep the baby because she believed her lover would marry her in 2 months. Hearing this, Sun Woo couldn't help but laugh and asked how Da Kyung could believe that. However, Da Kyung firmly asserted that Teo would do it because they had been together for over 2 years. These words made Sun Woo feel both angry and bitter. Following the lawyer's advice, Sun Woo began examining her husband's finances. When she went to the bank, she discovered that Teo had mortgaged their house and was 4 months behind on loan payments. He had also taken out a loan under his son's life insurance, which shocked Sun Woo. Back home, Sun Woo found the expense ledger and saw that her husband had used the mortgage money to pay for extravagant expenses for Da Kyung. That evening, Teo told her that he was busy revising his script and had to go to the office. This time, Sun Woo couldn't take it anymore and decided to storm into Da Kyung's apartment to capture evidence. There, she saw her husband and Da Kyung still intimate with each other, even revising the script for Teo so he could see Da Kyung more often. During a visit to her mother-in-law's house, Sun Woo was certain that she knew about T.O.'s affair but still tried to cover for her son. Sun Woo declared that she would get custody of the child and take all the assets because T.O. was the one at fault in this situation. However, her mother-in-law replied, "Let me die, then you can do whatever you want." Surprisingly, the next day, she actually passed away. Sun Woo thought it was fate. The funeral was held, and many guests came to pay their respects. Everyone mourned T.O.'s mother. However, T.O. didn't seem to be in the mood to receive visitors, except when Chairman Bayan came to pay his respects. At that time, T.O. warmly greeted him to curry favor, making Sun Woo realize the difference in his attitude. The ceremony was going smoothly when Sun Woo saw her husband going somewhere and followed him out. She saw him kissing Da Kyung in the car. It was unbelievable that on the day of his mother's death, T.O. could still do such a thing. Ji Hyuk, a friend of Sun Woo's, also witnessed this from afar. After laying his late mother to rest, the whole family went back home. T.O. was tired and wanted to lean on Sun Woo, but she pushed him away. However, remembering the lawyer's advice to act normal to avoid disadvantages in the divorce, Sun Woo pretended to be caring towards her husband. Meanwhile, Sun Woo had Hyun Seo pretend to be Da Kyung's neighbor, even faking a pregnancy, which made them feel sympathetic towards each other, and they gradually became close. It seemed that Hyun Seo had easily gained Da Kyung's trust. Regularly meeting with the lawyer also helped Sun Woo understand how to handle it if the documents were transferred to someone else's name. Then she wouldn't have a penny in the divorce. The divorce strategy had to be kept absolutely confidential, not letting T.O. suspect, so Sun Woo had to constantly pretend to be upset and have sex with her husband. The next day, Sun Woo received a patient who was the chairman's wife. Although she had requested it beforehand, Sun Woo still mentioned the inheritance of sexually transmitted diseases leading to gonorrhea. Knowing that she was very embarrassed about this, Sun Woo spoke tactfully, but still affirmed that sexual intercourse was the cause. Upon hearing this, the wife slapped her husband. Chairman Byung Kyu was also quite surprised when she refused to help him cover it up. The two talked to each other without knowing that Myung Suk was standing nearby observing, quickly reporting it to T.O. It's unclear which side she's actually on, but in reality, Sun Woo only told him about these incidents to consider whether to tell the patient about her condition or not. After all, they were a married couple. There was no need for so many secrets. T.O. feared that he would offend him, so he rushed over but could only close his car door. Sun Woo also made up an excuse to avoid him, which made T.O. even more worried. The wife also came back to tell Sun Woo, hoping she could pretend not to know and ignore it. After all, they both had a good reputation in the business world, so this would be very embarrassing if it was revealed. The wife still had to decide to overlook her husband, otherwise she would have nothing. Her problem was that she couldn't get a divorce, not that she didn't want to. That night, Hyun Seo, as instructed, installed cameras to film evidence of T.O.'s affair. Unfortunately, her ex-boyfriend In Kyu discovered this. When he couldn't get Hyun Seo's affection back, he intended to go to Da Kyung's apartment. When they were discovered, Sun Woo couldn't get in touch with her. It was past 1 a.m. Could something have happened to her? Meanwhile, T.O. had to stay overnight with the young girl due to work. Once again, Sun Woo completely collapsed, not knowing when she would escape from the situation of pretending not to know about his affair. The next morning, In Kyu went to Sun Woo's hospital. It seemed that he had the evidence of T.O.'s affair in his hands and wanted to blackmail her. He also locked up Hyun Seo and threw her somewhere. If she didn't hand over the money, he would tell T.O. about it, ruining her plan. Sun Woo went crazy because she couldn't do anything. A bouquet of flowers was sent to her, which made her feel a little relieved. Her husband's friend sent it, expressing that he had secretly liked Sun Woo for a long time and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to get close to her, hoping that they could have dinner together. Meanwhile, Da Kyung continued with her tutoring job. It seemed that she had really reached the stage of morning sickness, so she often felt uncomfortable in the bathroom. Yi Rim started a conversation with her about the baby in her belly and warned her that Sun Woo already knew but was pretending. It seemed that T.O. only saw her as a toy. Hearing this, Da Kyung was also very upset, but she couldn't do anything. On the other hand, Sun Woo had already bribed the secretary, and all of his actions would be reported to her. During their conversation, there was a mention of Da Kyung having dinner with her family at a restaurant. That evening, Sun Woo insisted on bringing her husband and son to the same restaurant. Seeing Mrs. Hyo-young dining with Da Kyung there made the situation quite awkward. Only T.O. and Da Kyung felt embarrassed, while Mrs. Hyo-young was very relaxed. Sun Woo took the opportunity to hold her husband's hand, saying they should have dinner together because the restaurant was fully booked and she had already made a reservation. Eventually, she agreed. During the meal, the atmosphere was quite tense. Sun Woo actually asked about Da Kyung's love life, making T.O. want to choke on his wine. She kept emphasizing her position with her husband and son. If there was a homewrecker, it was only the husband's excretion. Their son couldn't take it anymore and left with his dad. It seemed that they liked Sun Woo a lot because she was quite strong, just like their daughter. After the meal, Da Kyung returned to her apartment feeling incredibly depressed because of Sun Woo's words. Was she really just a plaything for T.O.? At that moment, Hyun Seo suddenly came to her house, battered and bruised. She said she had just escaped from her boyfriend who had locked her up, and she was afraid that she would have to abort the baby because she didn't want anything to do with him and didn't want to be beaten up regularly and lose her future. Hearing this, Da Kyung felt very sympathetic and confided in her about everything she had been through, unaware that Sun Woo was listening to the conversation from afar. She looked at her husband with an expression that seemed to say, "Do you dare consider making love to me as an obligation?" To get revenge on T.O., Sun Woo decided to put on heavy makeup and have dinner with Ji Hyuk. He was quite sophisticated and affectionate, different from what Sun Woo expected. But Sun Woo's real purpose wasn't revenge, but to find out about T.O.'s company's financial situation. Her only option was to go to a hotel with Ji Hyuk so he would fall for her trap. After they were done, Sun Woo forced him to reveal financial information or else she would make him and his wife divorce. That night, Da Kyung arrived at T.O.'s house unexpectedly, without warning. She said she had had an abortion, so they shouldn't have anything to do with each other anymore. Ji Hyuk also turned pale when Sun Woo forced him to report the company's financial information to her. When she thought back, she remembered a man who had brought her evidence of T.O.'s affair at her birthday party, a picture of him kissing someone passionately. This was quite shocking, but Sun Woo gradually got used to it. T.O. also sensed something strange from his wife after she returned from the early morning. She just said she had met an old friend and stayed up talking. That morning, a new character appeared, a handsome doctor named Yoon Kai, who had just been transferred to the neurology department. He was very eager to get help from everyone, and his handsome appearance seemed to attract Myung-suk. But Sun Woo didn't care much. She went to Ji Hyuk to find out and learned that her husband's company was actually an empty shell. The office rent was unpaid, and they didn't even have enough money to pay the staff. Expenses were higher than revenue, and even T.O. didn't know basic profit calculations. Everything he could say, Ji Hyuk said it all. He couldn't check T.O.'s account because that was illegal. But if Sun Woo gave him another passionate night, he would reconsider. In the evening, Sun Woo caught her husband trying to peek at her phone. It seemed he had started to suspect, so Sun Woo had to implement her plan as soon as possible. A tense situation occurred when In Kyu learned that Hyun Seo was helping Sun Woo because of drugs, so he planned to blackmail Sun Woo once again. Meanwhile, Sun Woo went to her lawyer to discuss the plan and unexpectedly met Mrs. Hyo-young there. She liked Sun Woo very much and told her to come over for dinner when she had time. The lawyer knew that T.O. was suspicious, so he advised her to extend the time for 2 to 3 weeks to prepare for asset division. If necessary, she could file a motion for temporary sealing in court, but it would take at least 2-3 weeks. When Sun Woo returned home, she ran into Ji Hyuk. It turned out that she refused to go to a hotel with him, so he came all the way here. When T.O. had a call outside, Sun Woo threatened Ji Hyuk, but he still revealed that 220 million won was T.O.'s slush fund. Plus, T.O.'s mother's life insurance money was 100 million. Although not a lot, it was enough to help her turn the tables. But if she upset him, that money would belong to someone else. Fortunately, Sun Woo was strong enough to withstand him, so she wasn't discovered. For some reason, they said something to each other that made T.O. wonder about Sun Woo's late return. She replied decisively that she had her own work and why he cared so much. While normally, T.O. wouldn't pay attention to her at all. Though she seemed strong, Sun Woo was actually still tormented by the trauma from her childhood accident, when her parents died in front of her. leaving her severely traumatized ever since. However, Injai made an appointment at a secluded place, asking his girlfriend to monitor her husband in exchange for medicine, threatening to send her to jail if she didn't give him the money. Everything would be exposed to her husband and the chief prosecutor. There were so many things happening that Sun Woo's mind was extremely stressed. She could only drink alone to ease her mind, but after drinking too much, she became delusional and wandered in the rain. Fortunately, someone pulled her back before she got hit by a car. Upon closer inspection, this wasn't the doctor who had been drinking that she had fired. If anyone saw what happened, Sun Woo would have a hard time keeping her position as deputy prosecutor. Think carefully about the divorce and take your son away from here. Sun Woo also had someone to confide in that night, which helped her to relieve the burden, but she was determined to get the assets because she had nowhere else to go. When she got home, she could only cry alone on the floor, and Teo saw this but chose to ignore it and avoid her. The next day, Hyun-seo discovered that Da Kyung had left the apartment to live with her parents. She probably decided to break up with Teo, and that's why she did it. Knowing this, Sun Woo started calculating her moves. Then, she gave Hyun-seo the medical record she wrote for her. If her boyfriend abused her again, she could sue him. Hyun-seo's mission was complete, so she didn't need to worry anymore. She took her husband on a drive, saying she was going to have dinner with a friend. Even though she didn't understand why he had to take her along, T.O. didn't seem to care much. When they arrived at the chairman's house, he was stunned by her reason for coming. As expected, but this method seemed a bit too much. The wife saw them both and greeted them as honored guests, even giving them a tour of her house. Seeing Sun Woo fiddling with things like that, T.O. was afraid that trouble would arise. Yet, they ran into Da Kyung there. Because they had just broken up, T.O. didn't know that she had moved back home. However, Sun Woo deliberately dropped a porcelain vase to the floor as if she were threatening her, stealing her husband. Although the wife found it inconvenient, she didn't make things difficult for her. During the meal, Sun Woo pretended to be very thirsty. Compared to her usual self, everyone gradually became uncomfortable with her behavior. However, Sun Woo directly mentioned her husband's affair and Da Kyung's pregnancy. The two had secretly been having an affair, which shocked the chairman and his wife. Both of them were silent, as if they had confessed everything. Unable to bear Sun Woo's humiliation, Da Kyung even resorted to physical action, making the situation worse. It seemed that Sun Woo had declared war on T.O. that day. After leaving the house, Sun Woo was even questioned by T.O. Even if she did, was it necessary to resolve it so seriously? The chairman would definitely not invest in his project anymore, so Sun Woo didn't care much and even told him about sleeping with Ji Hyuk, which drove T.O. crazy. At that time, Ji Hyuk was also dealt a blow. He went to the place Sun Woo had arranged for them to have sex, only to find that his new wife was there. Although he knew she was afraid of him, Ji Hyuk still felt guilty. He just said he didn't love Sun Woo, he only liked her body. Even though they weren't divorced, it didn't mean that Yi Rim would forgive him. If he felt guilty, cooperate to have a child together. On the other hand, T.O. was questioned by Da Kyung about approaching her because of her powerful father. He said the chairman saw his potential and invested. Now that he's withdrawing his capital, it's no different than pushing him against a wall. Hearing this, she felt heartbroken, so she decided to get back together with him because she still had the baby in her belly and had not had an abortion. Even if she had to sacrifice her parents just to have happiness for herself, she would accept it. On her way home, Sun Woo was caught by Yi Rim, who questioned her about her actions. They had both covered for T.O.'s affair, so Sun Woo wanted to get revenge in a subtle way. Although she didn't make them divorce, she did cause a rift in their relationship. So from now on, the two close sisters were no longer friends but became enemies. Back home, Jun Young also learned about what happened that night. T.O. woke up with the woman he loved, not afraid of anyone finding out. But the pressing issue now was finding an investor. Early in the morning, someone sent a package, a suitcase with divorce papers, a commitment not to raise their child, and the loss of all assets. How could T.O. accept that? Sun Woo also learned about his slush fund, along with those who worked without receiving pay, which helped her build a case. Hearing this made T.O. furious because Sun Woo had been planning this for a long time. Seeing this, Da Kyung said she would ask her father for help, but T.O. considered it a crazy idea, because no one would accept this relationship. Currently, he didn't have anything, neither assets nor custody of the child. This caused them to argue again. How could the baby in her belly grow up with her husband's child? Just then, Incayu came over and intervened in their conversation. He revealed that he was Hyun-seo's boyfriend and wanted to reveal her secret. Hyun-seo had followed the instructions of Sun-woo to monitor the two. When Sun-woo entered the chief prosecutor's office, she saw them both sitting there. They knew everything Incayu had told them. Because Sun-woo refused to pay him off, Teo began using these aspects to argue that she was violating professional ethics. Moreover, the accident in the past had caused her to suffer too much psychological damage. These words, Sun-woo had confided in Teo in the past when they were still in love, but now he was telling outsiders about this. He even conducted a psychological test, causing Sun-woo to run away. She got in her car and drove to her son's place recklessly. The boy was now their biggest asset, so everyone wanted him. Sun-woo went to school and took her son away before the confused eyes of his friends. Because of the GPS tracker, Teo knew where to follow their trail. Sun-woo even drove onto the highway, snatched her son's phone, and threw it out the window. After Teo couldn't contact them, Sun-woo took her son to a quiet place, hoping to live with him. But in reality, Jun-young loved his dad more because he spent more time with him. Even though his dad was having an affair and had a child out of wedlock, Jun-young accepted it, which made Sun-woo incredibly angry. Did she want to strangle this child? Sun-woo called Teo and said, "Come home, we need to settle this." When Teo got home, he couldn't find his son. However, Sun-woo poked him in the right spots, making him furious. Blood rushed to his head. The words were not very hurtful, but the humiliation was immense. It was inevitable that Sun-woo was beaten to the point where she fell to the floor, just as Jun-young saw this. Of course, the boy wouldn't accept the father in front of him anymore. From now on, there would be no father-son relationship. A few months later, Sun-woo won the lawsuit for being assaulted by her husband. She got the house and her beloved son, while Teo left with empty hands and the woman he loved. Sun-woo was even personally apologized to by the chairman for not disciplining his daughter well. But he also hoped that Sun-woo wouldn't sue his daughter. Da-kyung's belly grew bigger every day, and she couldn't escape the gossip. Everyone knew that she had taken another woman's husband, so they were quite disgusted. The chairman even blocked her credit cards, making her furious. Knowing that Teo and her were currently poor, why did he do this? He advised Da-kyung to give up on Teo, saying he would take care of both her and the child in her belly. But his daughter was still blinded by love, so he could only feel helpless. Hyun-seo now had a better life. She had successfully sued her boyfriend and sent him to prison. She had helped Sun-woo before, not just because she was prescribed medicine, but because she was the first person to help her when she saw her being abused. Now, Sun-woo and Teo were like strangers. They even felt hatred towards each other whenever they saw each other passing by in life. That day, Sun-woo received an invitation letter that made her feel numb. After 2 years, Teo dared to send an invitation to his housewarming party. Teo's movie was now a huge success, thanks to which he had the face to meet Jun-young at the school gate. Although Jun-young missed his father, he didn't show it. Teo had generously gifted his son a limited edition baseball bat, hoping to mend things. He also invited Jun-young to his housewarming party because his baseball idol would be there. Teo and the idol were close friends, so getting an autograph was too easy. Seeing her son being picked up by Teo, Sun-woo felt very angry inside. They both yelled at each other about the agreement to raise their child, but Teo argued that he was doing well as a father. Da-kyung's parents had accepted him, so it was legal for him and Da-kyung to live together. In the evening, Sun-woo also mentioned Teo's housewarming party. Knowing that her son wasn't going, she felt a bit relieved, but she didn't know that he had already wanted to meet his idol. Moreover, Teo's house was now very luxurious and cool, so not going would be a waste. These days, Sun-woo's heavy makeup and constant comings and goings in the neighborhood had caused a lot of gossip. They said she did it only to cover up the wounds in her heart. Everyone knew that Teo's affair had led to this. But whatever, she was the deputy director of a large hospital, so she had to maintain her image. Sun-woo increasingly confided in Dr. Yoon-kai. He also made her feel more at ease. A thoughtful and sophisticated person like him also alleviated her sadness. Tonight, Da Kyung's family was holding a housewarming party. Hyo-young advised her daughter not to worry too much about the party, but Da Kyung knew that they thought she was a homewrecker. But this time, she wanted to announce that she was now T.O.'s legal wife. The more expensive the party, the more it showed her strength. Looking at her husband preparing enthusiastically, she had some affection for him. Wouldn't a good woman need a man? Sun Woo received a call from her son, saying he would have dinner at his friend's house. She didn't care much, because this happened often. She could only drink to ease her sadness. Meanwhile, the party was very lively, with guests who were all high-ranking figures in society. But no one dared to say anything to the chairman's daughter. While she was alone, she was spotted by Joon-dae. He also went in, intending to drink and have a conversation with her. However, she received a message from T.O. Seeing that her child had lied to her to go to his father's housewarming party, made Sun Woo furious. She was about to take a taxi, but Yoon Kai decided to wait for her as a colleague. On the other hand, Jun Young had actually been bought over by his dad through his success, and he had even prepared a separate room for Jun Young, telling him to come and stay here if he wanted to. Da Kyung was not happy with T.O.'s approach. At least they should have discussed it first if they wanted to do something. The party went on smoothly afterwards. Hyo-young even tried to pull her daughter into the group of women. But the appearance of someone made everyone present fall silent. Sun Woo came to the party with Yoon Kai, saying she was looking for her son. Her determination made T.O. extremely uncomfortable, but wasn't he the one who sent the provocative message to Sun Woo? When Da Kyung brazenly told Sun Woo to go home, she brought out the invitation letter that she had previously sent to her son. So, both husband and wife were speechless. They could only let Sun Woo go in to find Jun Young. How the hell did she end up in their bedroom? Sun Woo couldn't get out and could only hide in the shadows to watch Mrs. Hyo-young and the others bad-mouthing her. When she was about to leave, she discovered nightgowns that were exactly like hers at home. It turned out that he wanted to make Da Kyung look more like Sun Woo to enjoy himself. When T.O. caught her, they confronted each other. Neither of them cared for the other. T.O. claimed that his biggest mistake was marrying someone like her. When they were dating, they were as sweet as honey, but now they are filled with hatred. After arguing, they gave speeches to everyone about their relationship, even saying that Da Kyung was by his side during his most difficult times, making Sun Woo feel like vomiting. However, Da Kyung even spoke to Sun Woo, saying that she hoped that their two sides would not fight anymore and live in harmony with each other. Finally, they found the foolish son when he almost hit his friend, because his friend praised Jun Young for being lucky to have a beautiful father. Jun Young even turned around and was angry at Sun Woo for ruining the party and making him lose face. It's true that the son is like the father. They really don't know how to discipline them. If I were him, I would beat him with a whip. That night, T.O. and Da Kyung were passionately in love, while Sun Woo was drowning in misery. Now, only her son was her emotional support, but he was being unfilial to her. Things got worse when T.O. had people follow Sun Woo's every move. Her every action was not hidden from him. He even proposed to the head of the hospital where Sun Woo worked, that if she wanted a large donation to the hospital, she should fire the deputy director. It seems that he was determined to overthrow Sun Woo. Even when she was having dinner with Dung and Hang, someone threw stones into the house. This was not a good sign at all. Because of a minor incident, the idiot called his dad. In the end, he only came to fix the glass door so the wind wouldn't blow in. He even mentioned that this house wasn't safe, advising Jun Young to return to live with him. Back home, T.O. also called Myung Suk. If she helped him remove Sun Woo from her position as deputy director, then that position could be hers. So it seems that she has been listening to this for a long time. The next day was the social gathering of the ladies in the elegant shooting club. It's called Class. After that, they had a luxurious and expensive meal to celebrate Da Kyung's entry into the Women's Association. T.O. had already paid for all of today's entertainment expenses, plus he gave each person a bottle of expensive wine to take home. He hoped to win over his wife's friends. Although Mrs. Hyo-young and Da Kyung were quite happy, Yirim was not. If it was a women's association, there shouldn't be men interfering in this matter. And he wasn't even there, so he didn't deserve the gifts. Although it sounded a bit unreasonable, it was quite convincing. Not only did he fail to win over everyone, he was even criticized. except for Myung-suk, who was shameless enough to accept the bottle of wine. No one else took it. On the other hand, Sun-woo went to the hospital and ran into her son. She called him, but unexpectedly, he hung up the phone. Out of curiosity, Sun-woo followed to see what was going on, and she caught Yoon-kai treating the boy. The fact that Yoon-kai hadn't told her about this made her furious. When they spoke in private, she learned that Yoon-kai had been treating him for 6 months. Jun-young always blamed himself for his parents' divorce. If Sun-woo knew about this, he would definitely stop coming for treatment. Knowing about this made the boy feel quite distressed, but she couldn't do anything about it. The only thing Sun-woo could do was to do nothing. On the other hand, Myung-suk, one of the group members, was trying to win over the deputy director because she was a very powerful figure in the Women's Association. Knowing that Myung-suk was trying to take Sun-woo's position as deputy director, the deputy director even threatened her, instead of helping her. Unbeknownst to them, their conversation was overheard by Hyun-seo. With her mother's permission, that night, Jun-young went to their house for dinner. The little one was over a year old now, so he was very cute. Da-kyung couldn't understand why she was trying to be close to her husband's child. She even prepared the previous room, fully furnished. If he wanted, he could sleep there tonight. That night, Sun-woo was eagerly waiting for Jun-young to return home. However, someone attacked her house again today. He was more brutal this time, directly entering the house, seemingly wanting to kill Sun-woo right there. Fortunately, she managed to call, and Yoon-kai on the other end of the line heard everything. While struggling with him, she threw a bottle of wine at his head. For some reason, she just stayed there waiting for him to wake up and continue fighting with Sun-woo. But hearing the police siren, he left before that. It turned out that the one who reported it was Yi-rim, because she was nearby. Yoon-kai arrived, quite surprised at the scene. Fortunately, Sun-woo only suffered minor injuries. She was not in any danger. But whatever, they still had to find the guy quickly because he could be a murderer. With his face covered like that, he must have had a specific purpose. Just as things were resolved, T.O. brought Jun-young home. Seeing a strange man in the house was very easy to misunderstand. Huh? Seeing his mother so injured made Jun-young very worried, but Sun-woo just told him that she was fine, and the police would handle everything. T.O. also wanted to get involved in this matter, but Yoon-kai stopped him. It seemed that the two men also had an unnecessary conflict in this relationship. The next day, meeting Hyun-seo, he learned about her eavesdropping. It turned out that T.O. was trying to frame Sun-woo to get her fired as deputy director. He even learned about it from Yi-rim that he had been hanging around the house for a few days before. When there was no one at home, what was he doing there? Out of anger, Sun-woo stormed into T.O.'s office, making it clear that even if he did dirty things behind her back, he wouldn't be able to take her son away from her. However, T.O. had the audacity to say that she wasn't fit to raise the boy. He didn't know that the boy had been coming to the hospital for treatment for 6 months. Though only a few words, the damage was immense. When you love each other a lot, it hurts when you bite each other. On this side, Ji-hyuk is also not at peace, messing around with other women. It seems like he truly loves his wife, but still has feelings for another girl. He's truly a man of many feelings. On this side, the person who tried to kill Sun-woo has also been exposed. He is In-gil, Hyun-seo's ex-boyfriend, hired by T.O. But he had been instructed to only threaten Sun-woo. How could he have caused such a big incident? This made T.O. very angry. They don't know that Sun-woo is going to meet the most powerful woman in the Women's Association, the vice president. The next day, while the Women's Association is still enjoying target shooting together, Sun-woo arrives in a very stylish crimson dress. Her appearance here doesn't seem to be at the right place and time. However, Sun-woo says she wants to join the Women's Association. According to the previous rules, she only needs enough votes from the members to be accepted. The vice president raises her hand in agreement, and 1 or 2 other people, including the director, also raise their hands, making the film more captivating. With enough votes, Sun-woo successfully joins the Women's Association. In the bathroom, Da-kyung asks directly what Sun-woo's purpose is in joining, but she says it's better not to worry about that. Just pay close attention to your husband, because he's always flirting around. Hearing this, Da-kyung feels very hurt, but it seems like Sun-woo is not joking at all. That evening, T.O. coincidentally brings his wife out to eat and runs into Sun-woo and Junie. Although he tries to act unconcerned, his expression shows that he's bothered. Seeing them holding hands makes T.O.'s blood boil. When they get home, Da Kyung keeps mentioning what happened earlier, making T.O. even more worried. Seeing her husband like this, Da Kyung feels uncomfortable. Could Sun Woo's words be true? That night, for some unknown reason, T.O. goes to Ji Hyuk's place when he's with his mistress and suddenly invites him out for a drink. Although they're no longer close friends, the two depraved men start talking about Sun Woo's body. After sleeping with her, they find her hot and seductive. After holding back for a while, T.O. punches Ji Hyuk in the bar. After all, Sun Woo was his ex-wife. Why do they keep messing around with each other? They end up brawling, and T.O. gets hurt. The next day, at the hospital, Sun Woo holds an important meeting. However, the board is unhappy that the director doesn't mention Sun Woo's resignation. Until the end of the meeting, the director doesn't say anything. Knowing this, T.O. is very angry. He directly confronts the director, asking if he doesn't want the donation money. It turns out that Sun Woo has convinced the chairman to meet with him to discuss the matter, so the final decision will be made by the chairman. They still need to have a private meeting for the chairman to decide. Since he's already at the hospital, T.O. also goes to Sun Woo to question her. If she wants to get that vice director position, she should do a good job. Unexpectedly, Sun Woo shows him a picture from the security camera footage. If they can catch this guy, Sun Woo will know who's behind all this. T.O. immediately calls In Yu and yells at him. He had warned him to be careful, but he got caught on the security camera. With that kind of work, he won't get a single cent from T.O. It seems like T.O. is very angry and is planning something. At the school where Jun Young is studying, many people have lost their belongings. Nobody knows who's been taking their things, so they're all very angry. During art class, Jun Young deliberately stains his shirt so he can go outside. He doesn't go to the bathroom. He goes straight to the classroom. It turns out he's been the one stealing his classmates' belongings recently. After taking the stuff, he even throws it away. No Yoon sees this and makes him apologize to everyone before she tells the truth. But Jun Young doesn't care because his father is powerful. When Jun Young is going home, someone keeps taking pictures of him. Sun Woo is at work and suddenly receives a package. Inside is a dead bird, which is very strange. There's also a picture of her son, so it definitely isn't anything good. T.O. also receives the secretly taken pictures of Jun Young. Maybe he started taking risks because T.O. didn't pay him enough. They both call their son, but they can't get through. They're afraid something might have happened to him. They search all the places Jun Young might be, looking for him in despair. Sun Woo even calls the police. The chairman and the vice president are waiting for each other, but neither of them shows up, leaving the two high-ranking officials waiting in vain. But assuming that something urgent happened, the chairman doesn't seem too bothered. They're not the kind of people who get upset over things like that. After the police's efforts, they finally find Jun Young. It turns out he just snuck out to go to extra classes. He even acts angry because his mother called the police. At that moment, a person passes by, giving Sun Woo chills. It seems like In Gil is warning Sun Woo not to provoke him. Back home, Jun Young doesn't apologize to his mother and angrily locks himself in his room. She's tried everything, but he's still mad about what happened earlier. Fortunately, there's a person who understands the psychology of teenage boys, and they can talk to him. That night, Da Kyung sneaks into T.O.'s office. She knows he keeps a backup phone there to keep it hidden. She finds the phone and opens it to see pictures of Sun Woo being followed. Remembering Sun Woo's words about him following her, Da Kyung can't help but feel heartbroken. On the other side, In Kyu seems to have won back his ex-girlfriend's trust by saying he's changed a lot. He claims that when he's in prison, he hopes they can go back to how they were before. But when he gets out of prison, he's arrested again for threatening to use his son against him. He's threatened someone, and now he's being threatened in return. If he doesn't give In Kyu double the original amount, he will confess to the police. He's used to being in jail, so it doesn't matter to him. T.O. is probably terrified. The next day, T.O. goes to see his father-in-law to apologize for leaving him hanging the day before. But his father-in-law has already made a decision, so there's no need to apologize. Then, he has to meet In Yu to pay him off, but it's still not enough, so they start arguing in the car. In Yu has already noticed that T.O. still has feelings for Sun Woo, so he at least needs him to do his dirty work. On the other side, Lewin is talking with the chairman. They seem to have a very secret relationship. Hyun-jae tells Sun-woo that her relationship with T.O. hasn't ended. One of them has to be dragged down so the true nature of both of them can be revealed. The reason Yun is approaching Sun-woo is because it benefits him. That night, Sun-woo is looking at old memories of happier times, but T.O. bursts into her house as if it were his own. He threatens her, saying she has to appear before him in his life from now on. He also says she's being reckless by looking at those things and then pulls her shirt down, saying, "Don't provoke me, or I'll do something crazy." The next day, the couple, Ji-hyuk, went to the hospital to try F. It seemed like they had decided to have a child together after over 10 years of marriage, and Ji-hyuk had stopped his philandering and decided to be faithful to his wife. But when Ji-hyuk went into the examination room, Yi-rim received a message from an unknown number. It was an intimate video of her lover and Ji-hyuk, which shocked her. She couldn't handle it. When he came out, he couldn't find his wife. She was supposed to be with the doctor, but she had disappeared. He searched the hospital but couldn't find her. Then, she received a smug call from T.O., who seemed to be behind everything. He wasn't happy for long because while he was watching his child, the man came to his door, fearing their relationship would be exposed. T.O. had to make a hasty promise to pay him off to get him to leave. Fortunately, Da-kyung didn't suspect anything when she came home because T.O. said it was the newspaper delivery guy. Later, the chairman talked to her. He noticed that T.O.'s relationship with Sun-woo didn't seem to be over, so he hinted at this to Da-kyung. But her head was too naive, and she couldn't understand his deep meaning. That evening, T.O. just had to say a few sweet words to make Da-kyung swoon. She didn't mention that she had found the pictures on his backup phone. It's true that sons love with their eyes, and daughters love with their ears. The next day, Sun-woo also received notice from the director. He didn't refuse the donation but couldn't give the position to Myung-suk because she wasn't qualified enough. He decided that the successor to Sun-woo's position would be Junyi. She was surprised and angry at him. He had dared to say he didn't care about the position, and then he acted like this. Myung-suk even taunted her, making Sun-woo upset. Using each other's feelings to achieve their goals is truly sly. When she met with the chairman, he said he would give her some compensation to leave Gulson. He guessed that she still had feelings for her ex-husband, and that this was a threat to the happiness of his only daughter, so he would do everything he could to get her to leave. But how could Sun-woo submit? He even said that he had her in his hands and could do whatever he wanted. For days, she hadn't been able to contact Yi-rim. Ji-hyuk was very angry. She had received a message with photos of her intimate moments with her lover. He was really upset because he had broken up with her a long time ago. He went to her workplace, but she had already quit her job a while back, after he broke up with her. He didn't understand why she would do that to him. Then, he received a call from T.O. while he was in his car. T.O. wanted to know what it felt like to be betrayed. He couldn't believe she had slept with his wife. This wasn't over. It was now clear that T.O. was a ruthless person. On the other side, Sun-woo went to Yoon Kai's house to confront him. No matter how much he explained, Sun-woo didn't believe him. She decided to cut off her relationship with him. As soon as she got home, she found her family broken. He was kicked out of his house with his clothes. This time, it was serious. Yi-rim decided to get a divorce. Ji-hyuk told her about T.O. sending someone to frame him and advised her to be careful because he didn't know what he might do next. After receiving a hefty sum of money, In-yu took Hyun-seo to buy jewelry. He chose a very expensive ring and didn't hesitate at all. He even told the staff that it was their wedding ring. When they got home, he gave Hyun-seo another sum of money, wanting to make up for his past mistakes. However, Hyun-seo still reported it to Sun-woo because they were still secretly working together. With the address, Sun-woo went there directly to confront him. Why did he hit her? According to T.O., he was simply driven mad by her and wanted to take action against her. Sun-woo was secretly trying to get a recording of his confession. Later, she erased the recording and let Hyun-seo out of the house. However, she had prepared a separate recording device. Even so, it wasn't enough to get a confession out of him. Despite this, she had to send Hyun-seo to another city to live. If he found her, she would never be safe. While they were heading to the train station together, In-yu smelled something fishy. He went there directly and searched for Hyun-seo everywhere, determined not to let her leave. His angry eyes revealed that he had been tricked. Sun-woo also said goodbye to Hyun-seo, hoping she could live well somewhere else. As she was leaving, Hyun-seo saw In-gil searching for her, so she had to leave her suitcase behind and run. But he was already onto her. The moment the elevator door closed, he managed to get in because Hyun-seo had left her wallet behind, which In-yu had been holding. Sun-woo went to her place and found the suitcase there. What had happened? Hyun-seo was nowhere to be found. She called and called, but no one answered. When she saw the rescue team and the people gathered around the place, she noticed the bloodstains on the floor and her familiar clothes. Sun-woo was devastated. After all the violence he inflicted on his girlfriend, In-gil finally let Hyun-seo go. Down below, Sun-woo was frantic and desperately searching for Hyun-seo. At that moment, a person fell from the rooftop and died on the spot. Beside him was the scarf that Yoon-kai had given Hyun-seo, leaving her speechless. Luckily, Dr. Yoon-kai arrived in time to help her calm down. It turned out the dead person was In-yu. T.O. came home acting very strange, making Da Kyung suspicious. After hearing about the murder at Gagosan, her suspicions intensified. She started questioning her husband, T.O. While Sun-woo was talking to Dr. Yoon-kai about what happened at Gagosan, Hyun-seo called. After the death of her violent boyfriend, she was having a mental breakdown, constantly afraid and running away. Hyun-seo finally sought help from Sun-woo and told her about another person who was at the scene. To Sun-woo's surprise, it was her ex-husband, T.O. Yi-rim finally freed herself by deciding to divorce her current husband. Taking advantage of the situation, while Sun-woo was caught up in a criminal case, Dr. So used the opportunity to ask for a promotion to vice president, replacing Sun-woo, but he was rejected by the president. Da Kyung became even more convinced of her suspicions when she saw blood on her husband's collar and a parking ticket from Gagosan. She started piecing together the events and realized the connection between the victim, In-gil, and her husband. This made Da Kyung even more suspicious. She believed that T.O. was the one who killed In-gil. Jun Young's classmates believed that the man who died at the Gulsan train station was his mother's lover. Not only that, but all the mothers there thought that Yoon-kai was actually involved with In-gil. Out of concern for Sun-woo, Dr. Yoon-kai followed her and tried to stop those who were watching her. Yoon-kai met with Hyun-seo, and she was told everything about the dark night of the murder at the Gulsan train station. Hyun-seo gave her the ring that T.O. dropped, which could be the piece of evidence that makes T.O. a suspect in the Gulsan train station murder. In the dead of night, T.O. went to see Sun-woo and accused her and Hyun-seo of murder. He even suspected that the two of them had conspired to kill In-gil. At the same time, Yi-rim and So went out drinking and came home drunk. The three of them seemed okay on the surface, but each of them had their own inner struggles. Yi-rim's divorce had left her feeling heartbroken, so warned Sun-woo that she might be the suspect in the murder case at Gagosan. Jun Young was lost in thought about what was happening at school, so he waited for his mother to come home and asked her all his questions about her relationship with In-gil. His father, worried about his beloved daughter, told her she could end things with T.O., but Da Kyung truly still loved T.O. Ji Hyuk mistakenly gave the wrong address to the driver, and he fell asleep at his ex-wife's house. So the two of them went to see Sun-woo together. He told her about a strange detail. All the surveillance cameras at Gagosan had malfunctioned during the incident. Someone powerful must have been behind it. There was no one else but the chairman, according to Da Kyung's father. Da Kyung was truly disappointed in T.O. because he wouldn't tell her the truth. Her disappointment reached its peak when she saw that he wasn't even wearing his wedding ring. T.O. tried to defend himself, claiming that he was not the murderer and intentionally directing Da Kyung towards Sun-woo as the killer. Seo was impatient waiting for news of Sun-woo, so she went to the hospital where she worked and followed her. Meanwhile, Dr. Yoon-kai, who had been silently protecting Sun-woo, decided to personally confront Chairman Hyo to reveal everything. Chairman Hyo, not wanting his daughter to get hurt, had been covering up all the crimes of his son-in-law, T.O. At that moment, Seo entered the room, surprising both of them. Seo saw the scene and left. After some deliberation, Seo found a way to peacefully resolve the situation by directing the case toward a suicide conclusion. On the other hand, T.O. was arrested by the police after Hyun-seo's accusation. After reporting the case, she informed Sun Woo of everything and decided she wouldn't ask her for help again. At the police station, T.O. was detained for questioning regarding the murder of In-gil at the Gaegosan house. He tried to plead with his second wife, Da Kyung, and his father-in-law, Chairman Hyo, but no one cared about his situation. The situation was truly dire. The CEO wanted to protect his son, Jun Young. Chairman Hyo also didn't want his granddaughter to be known as the daughter of a murderer. Suddenly, Sun Woo appeared at the police station, covering up her ex-husband's crimes by lying that he had been with her in the car that night. Seo was taken aback and wanted to tell the truth, but she was a powerless voice against a powerful man like Chairman Hyo. To strengthen her argument, Seo held onto T.O.'s wedding ring, the one that Hyuna Seo had found at the crime scene. She confirmed that it had fallen in her car the night the murder took place. Thanks to this, T.O. was spared. After all this, it was his ex-wife, the woman he had cast aside, who saved him. His new wife, Da Kyung, remained indifferent. She even ignored his calls, making him furious. He yelled at Da Kyung, saying, "After all, you're Jenny's mother and my wife." Ultimately, the case was ruled a suicide. Although Chairman Hyo was sure in his heart that his son-in-law was a murderer, he had to turn a blind eye for his daughter's sake. Recent rumors had been bothering Jun Young. He heard his classmates talking about it and argued with them. Now, his classmate, Seo, understood why he was so upset with his mother. Knowing this, Sun Woo found the person spreading the rumors, which were causing Jun Young distress at school. She dealt with the rumor monger. However, her life was thrown into turmoil. She had just won custody of her son, but now he decided to move in with his father. He didn't even say goodbye to his mother before leaving. She was devastated that her last remaining family member had chosen to leave her. Ji Hyuk, wanting to win back his ex-wife, tried to approach her, but she remained indifferent. Da Kyung saw her husband being distant with her, but he was very cheerful when his son called. To save her marriage, she went to meet her husband's other child and showed empathy for their situation. But this woman wasn't simple. She was doing all this to gain her husband's attention. Da Kyung finally revealed her ultimate goal. She wanted to bring Jun Young home to live with his father. When Yi-rim returned home, she found her house completely cleaned by Ji Hyuk. His smile made her heart flutter a bit. After all she had been through, the past still lingered. Today, Sun Woo returned home to another shock. Her son was packing his bags to move in with his father and stepmother. Jun Young's sudden desire to live with his father left Sun Woo, the mother, feeling completely confused. She poured out all her guilt and anger on her ex-husband. However, it seemed like Da Kyung was behind it all. Dr. Yoon Kai, who had been silently by Sun Woo's side, realized she wasn't okay. He offered to take her to the movies, but she refused. She still couldn't open her heart to accept new happiness. Da Kyung was scolded by her mother for bringing her husband's other child to live with them. Her mother didn't know that she was doing all of this just to save her suffocating marriage. Everything started to get worse when Sun Woo saw Jun Young become happier living with his father and stepmother. The image of Da Kyung picking out clothes for Jun Young at the shopping mall was etched into her mind. Her feelings, which hadn't healed, were further wounded. T.O. discovered Da Kyung's plan to send his son to study in the US. He was discouraged by their increasingly strained marriage. Meanwhile, Sun Woo found her close friend to drink with. She accidentally discovered that Sun Woo was planning to leave the city. After packing her things, Sun Woo sat down dejectedly to drink. A doorbell rang, and it was her ex-husband, T.O. They drank together and talked about the past and their mistakes. T.O. started to regret his choices. He thought that Sun Woo felt the same way, and that she still had feelings for him. Ultimately, neither of them could control their emotions, and they ended up having sex. On the other side, Da Kyung felt very uneasy. She called her husband, but he didn't answer. Even though they both realized their actions were wrong, they couldn't ignore their desires. After their encounter, they were both awkward and uncomfortable facing each other. They both wanted to forget what had happened and pretend it was a mistake. T.O. returned home feeling guilty for leaving his sick daughter to be cared for by his wife alone. Though he realized their actions were wrong, Sun Woo tried to push down her desires but couldn't resist her suppressed needs. More than 2 years after her divorce, following their wrong choice, Sun Woo tried to erase all traces of her ex-husband from her home. After a series of unusual behaviors in previous episodes, Jun Young became increasingly difficult to control, easily losing his temper. He ran away to play at night and even dreamed of his father beating and trying to kill his mother, a scene from 2 years ago. After spending the night at the internet cafe, Jun Young returned home in time for his father to take him to school. His stepmother smelled cigarettes on him. When she asked him about it, he denied it. Though his father didn't care and seemed to trust his son, he called his ex-wife, Sun Woo, at work to ask about his son. He was worried when he heard that his son might have been smoking, but she denied it. Sun Woo was going to Busan for work, so she asked her ex-husband to meet their son. Recently, Jun Young had started to steal things from the store. It didn't stop there. He also began stealing from his friends. He had turned it into a habit. Ji Hyuk tried everything to win back his ex-wife, but Yi Rim wouldn't forgive him. At the same time, To and Sun Woo were urgently called to their son's school. It turned out their son had beaten up a classmate. After repeatedly acting violently without mercy, Jun Young's classmate ended up hospitalized in critical condition. After talking to their son, the ex-couple was very surprised. The once gentle child had changed so much. He easily flew into rages. They couldn't find the reason for his mental deterioration, and he even wanted to drop out of school. Sun Woo went to the hospital alone to talk to Hee Kang's mother. Through the conversation, she found out that her son had been stealing things. Her son's condition was truly serious. Even though she couldn't believe it, the truth was undeniable. She went home and searched her son's closet. The stolen items from his friends were hidden in a box. She was a mother, but was the last to know the truth. The divorce of his parents had greatly affected her son's psychology. He was further devastated by the divorce, even though his parents were still seeing each other. Hee Kang's mother didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Sun Woo made an appointment for To and their son to go to the hospital to apologize, but the father had already dismissed the matter. The women in the family were different. They didn't like Sun Woo. Hee Kang's mother still held a grudge against Sun Woo for threatening her. She demanded to make things difficult. In front of everyone, Sun Woo had to kneel down to apologize for her son. Everything was going to be resolved peacefully until Da Kyung appeared with gifts and was greeted warmly by Hee Kang's mother. With just a few casual remarks from Da Kyung, Hee Kang's mother immediately forgave her son on his behalf. Sun Woo, powerless, got up and left the hospital room dejectedly. The stepmother, using her father's power as the chairman, successfully resolved everything peacefully. Sun Woo could only watch helplessly as her son went with another woman. Recent events had left Sun Woo truly exhausted. She was unable to focus at work today. To was truly grateful to his second wife. She had helped his stepson a lot, and he was temporarily safe from being sued by Hyo's family. The most important thing now was to pay special attention to Jun Young. On the other side, her son sat in silence for a while and then texted his mother, asking her to leave this place. Reading those words, Sun Woo was devastated and heartbroken. She called her ex-husband and asked to talk. To reassure his wife, he promised to give their son a good life. When she found out that the night her son stayed at the internet cafe was the same night they had sex, Sun Woo vaguely realized why her son had suddenly become erratic. She recalled her son's words at school and became more convinced of her thoughts. They both went to see their son. Through Jun Young's confession, it turned out he had seen his parents embracing on that fateful night. Because of this, Jun Young remembered the horrifying memories of his parents' divorce and became more violent than usual. Jun Young asked his mother to leave far away, so that To, or anything else, could be fine. He was already hurting enough and no longer expected a happy family. Jun Young was upset when he discovered that his parents, who had been divorced for 2 years, were having an affair with each other, even though they had separate families. On the other side, To's mother-in-law kept calling, urging her daughter to return Jun Young to his biological mother. Da Kyung stubbornly refused. After everything that had happened, she wanted to manage her stepson more strictly. Yi Rim had a stomachache and couldn't sleep. Luckily, her ex-husband came by with her favorite cake to eat when she was sick. She was actually touched by him. On the other side, Sun Woo was facing trouble at the hospital. The patient she was treating had to be rushed to the emergency room in critical condition. The reason was because she had misdiagnosed him. She was continuously berated by the patient's family and reprimanded by the hospital director. The events unfolded in a whirlwind, making her feel overwhelmed. She decided to submit her resignation and leave without a word of goodbye. Da Kyung, wanting to regain her position in her husband's heart, helped his stepson a lot. When she learned that her husband's ex-wife had left, she was even happier. She believed that their family's future would be truly happy. Jun Young became more obedient after being treated by a psychologist. Yi Rim finally forgave her ex-husband's mistakes and went out on a date with him. Dr. Yoon Kai, who had feelings for Sun Woo, was very worried. Hearing from the doctor that Sun Woo was fine, he was relieved. After observing Dr. So for a while, the hospital director told her about promoting her to vice president. T.O. couldn't reach his ex-wife and was worried. He even called his colleagues and went to her house. Sun Woo seemed to have let go of everything. The more she held on to what she loved, the easier it was to lose. She confided in Dr. Seo that when she disappeared, everyone seemed to feel more comfortable. T.O. went to the hospital to meet with the director. When he left, he stood in front of his ex-wife's office, lost in thought. He was truly worried about her. Early in the morning, Dr. Seo went to the hotel to find Sun Woo, but he found out that she had left early. He was anxious and called her, but she didn't answer. He remembered her words, and he was even more worried. He quickly called Dr. Yun to inform him. As soon as he received the news, he canceled all his patients' appointments and rushed out. By chance, Sun Woo was found sitting forlornly on the beach, slowly taking off her jacket and walking into the ocean. Gradually, she disappeared into the waves. Dr. Yun found her car and belongings on the beach and anxiously called out her name. T.O. arrived just in time. Seeing Sun Woo in the water, Dr. Yun rushed in and saved her, bringing her back to shore. He successfully administered first aid. He held her tightly in his arms, and all the pressure she had been suppressing finally came out. She sobbed into his embrace. Her ex-husband arrived and saw this scene, so he quietly left and went home. After finding out that his ex-wife was safe, but in the care of another man, T.O. was heartbroken. He forced himself to have dinner with his family and Da Kyung's family. Da Kyung had carefully planned for this dinner party, but when she heard her daughter crying and saw her stepson, Jun Young, beside her, she felt wronged. Jun Young had been coddled and fed by his stepmother, Da Kyung, but now she was accusing him of hurting her daughter. Jun Young argued back, but was slapped by his own father, T.O., for his attitude towards Da Kyung. The slap left Jun Young stunned. He realized that his mother was the only one who truly loved him, no matter how he treated her. Sun Woo, lying in the hospital bed, received an Roman 4 drip. She heard her son calling her, so she got up quickly, charged her phone, and called her son. Jun Young talked to his mother and sobbed uncontrollably, asking her to come and pick him up. The recent incident made Da Kyung's parents criticize her even more for bringing her husband's son to live with them. They were worried that the family would fall apart if she left, meaning she would have nothing left to hold on to T.O. Da Kyung refused to let Sun Woo take her son, claiming she didn't care about Jun Young and even wanted to send him abroad as soon as possible. However, in front of Sun Woo, Da Kyung insisted that she wanted to protect her husband's son. Seeing his stepmother's angry demeanor, Jun Young was terrified and quickly ran out of the house, forgetting his shoes. After so long apart, the two mothers embraced each other tightly. As they were about to leave, Da Kyung appeared and blocked them, making provocative remarks. She even blamed Sun Woo for Jun Young's bad behavior. She claimed that Sun Woo was abnormal and couldn't raise her son properly. Sun Woo saw the true purpose of this other woman to save her own marriage. She couldn't take the provocations anymore. Sun Woo countered her by warning her that her ex-husband was developing feelings for her. With a single phrase, "He slept with me," she shattered everything Da Kyung had worked for. Finally, Da Kyung tasted the pain of betrayal. She, who had cheated on another woman's husband, now understood what it felt like to have her own husband cheat on her. Da Kyung couldn't accept the fact that her husband had slept with his ex-wife. She was heartbroken, but the truth was the truth. The mother and son returned home. Their relationship slowly improved. T.O. recalled the scene of him slapping his son and became even more despondent. Remembering the scene of his ex-wife being embraced by another man, he went home and couldn't find his son. He became furious. He found his father-in-law and calmly questioned him about his ex-wife, not wanting to repeat the same mistakes. He admitted everything. he was still as despicable as before. He blamed everything on Sunwoo. After bringing Jun Young home, the mother and son talked and opened up to each other. Only now did he understand his mother's pain. Finally, Jun Young understood everything and wanted to leave with his mother far away, to a place where no one knew their story. After carefully considering everything, Teo decided to forgive his wife. He recognized his mistakes. He tried to make amends with his wife and son with a kiss and then went to work. While Sunwoo and her son were packing their belongings, Teo arrived looking for him, wanting to apologize for his actions. He only received avoidance from his son. The ex-couple argued again, and this only fueled Sunwoo's desire for revenge. Wanting to completely escape her ex-husband, Sunwoo went to see Chairman Hyo, Teo's father-in-law, and told him that he was not trustworthy. She also praised Da Kyung's capabilities. Pictures of Teo visiting Sunwoo were sent to Da Kyung. At that moment, she received news from her mother that Sunwoo was selling her house. Jun Young went to see his classmate and asked him to return all the items he had stolen and to apologize to his classmates. Da Kyung seemed to have fallen into a trap. When she went to Sunwoo's house as a potential buyer, she happened to encounter Yaris there. She was doused with cold water when Yaris reminded her that Teo wouldn't easily forget his ex-wife. She also told her about how Teo worried about Sunwoo nearly drowning. This made the other wife even more upset. Wanting to make up for his feelings for his wife, Ji Hyuk planned a vacation with her. When he tried to be intimate with his wife, she refused. It seemed that she wasn't ready yet. After going through so much, Jun Young asked his mother to meet a better man. She felt more comfortable with this and actively called Dr. Yoon Kai. On the other side, Jun Young was happy to receive understanding from his classmates. Da Kyung was anxious and couldn't sleep. She made an appointment to meet her husband's ex-wife. She didn't want to see the mother and son near her husband anymore. She wanted to show the other woman Teo's true nature. Sunwoo took Da Kyung to her house. Da Kyung was completely shattered when she discovered a series of her husband's secrets. Chairman Hyo showed her everything from the way he chose a wedding dress to his pajamas to his cologne, making Da Kyung realize she had become a perfect copy of Sunwoo. Even the shirt Da Kyung was wearing was exactly like the one Sunwoo wore when she was younger. Teo's nature of seeking freedom and always searching for new things made Da Kyung collapse in tears. The man she had poured her heart into, married, protected, and forgave, turned out to be a scoundrel. While Teo thought things were getting better, he lost everything. His bank account was frozen. His position at the company was revoked. He hurried home, but his father-in-law was waiting for him. He confiscated the car and kicked his son-in-law out of the house. All he wanted was for Teo to bring happiness to his beloved daughter. But Teo kept disappointing him, so they had to divorce. Custody of the child would go to his wife, Da Kyung, the wife who had tried so hard to keep him. Even Da Kyung couldn't stand him anymore. After the fateful night at Sunwoo's house, she no longer cared for a scoundrel of a husband like him. Just as Da Kyung's family was leaving, Sunwoo arrived to meet Teo. He continuously blamed his ex-wife for everything, but she calmly sat in her car and left. On the way to pick up her son, she accidentally ran into her ex-husband walking down the street. He was so pitiful that she threw some money on the ground to give him as charity, as usual. They argued again. He used harsh words to provoke his ex-wife. Sunwoo was so furious that she wanted to run him over. However, she couldn't do it. She was heartbroken to see Teo standing in front of her car, not moving or scared. She burst into tears and drove away. Teo picked up the money and cried, weeping over his own misery. A month had passed. Sunwoo returned to Gulsan. Her friend, the vice president, convinced her to return to the hospital to work, as she was a very skilled doctor and in high demand. Through her friend, Sunwoo learned about her ex-husband's miserable life. Meanwhile, Jun Young was watching a movie at home when he heard a strange ring. His mother was busy shopping for flowers. When she returned home, she couldn't find her son. She was worried. Seeing her son's phone on the couch, she realized something was wrong. She was even more certain when she saw her ex-husband's message on a piece of paper. She was anxious again. She had been unable to protect her beloved son. The final episode begins with a peaceful and happy scene of Sunwoo's family and her son, Jun Young, before the arrival of the other woman, Da Kyung. The three of them enjoyed a happy meal together, talking about their day. However, everything changed because of T.O.'s downfall, getting caught in a wrong relationship with a younger mistress. Now, at the same dinner table, only the mother and son remain. The son has removed all pictures related to his father. The two of them are back to their energetic selves, as if they had never gone through anything bad. Jun Young went to the bookstore with Noah to buy books for their university entrance exams. Sun Woo went shopping at the mall and accidentally ran into Hee Kang's mother, the mother of the classmate her son had hit. The two women apologized to each other and let go of the past. The clothes his mother bought him were all very beautiful. He received a message from Noah, and to avoid worrying his mother, he showed her the message. Ji Hyuk sat dejectedly drinking, reminiscing about the scene of his wife refusing his advances. He accidentally saw T.O. and followed him, but he lost track of him. Dream, missing her husband, went looking for him and found that he was still living at the company. This time, she truly forgave him. Everyone held a party to celebrate a new journey. Sun Woo accidentally saw a figure that looked like her ex-husband. It seemed like all the animosity between Sun Woo and her ex-husband ended with their argument that day, but the danger was always lurking. Sun Woo and her son went for a walk together. She always felt like someone was watching them. A woman's intuition was right. There was a figure constantly following them. Early in the morning, Yi Rim happily brought coffee to her husband before he went to work. Seeing him smile in the car, she was afraid of being deceived again. Today, she received a mysterious envelope in the mail. It contained a picture of her family, torn into pieces and then glued back together. It was sent to her house, and Sun Woo and Jun Young were terrified. Sun Woo recalled a picture of her and her husband whispering about taking wedding photos every 10 years. They had been truly happy, but they lost everything. T.O., with his controlling addiction, was living in a rundown room, spending most of his time drinking and watching his ex-wife's every move. The Women's Association came to Sun Woo's house to eat and drink. Yi Rim mentioned that she had seen T.O. recently, making Sun Woo anxious. When Yi Rim returned home and saw her husband talking cheerfully on the phone, she became suspicious. He was still the same. She wept, heartbroken because she couldn't settle down and felt uneasy. She always suspected her husband. Continuing from the previous episode, T.O.'s actions caused her to collapse. Sun Woo panicked when she found out that her son had been taken by her ex-husband. She was mentally unstable. Sun Woo, nearly going crazy, received a call from T.O. He wanted to be forgiven and get back together, and he didn't want to be abandoned by her and her son. However, it seemed like it was too late. Despite this, she calmly persuaded him, fearing that her ex-husband would hurt their son. She tried to talk some sense into him and made an appointment for them to have dinner together. Finally, the family of three met. Sun Woo found her son sitting next to his father. They got into the car and went to a restaurant to eat. The father's appearance was truly pathetic. He even burst into tears when his ex-wife asked about him. They sat down and talked about the past and present. All their pain was etched into the minds of Sun Woo and, especially, Jun Young. T.O. begged his ex-wife to start over with him, but he was rejected. T.O. was devastated because it was too late. His son ran to the bathroom and cried. All three of them were hurting so much. Understanding the psychology of her ex-husband, who was in despair and wanting to stop him from thinking about suicide, Sun Woo took both him and their son away. At that moment, T.O. told his son to live a good life, and then he suddenly ran in front of a truck. Sun Woo and Jun Young were too slow to react. Just as they thought T.O. was dead, the truck miraculously braked. Sun Woo panicked and ran to embrace T.O. He was afraid and knelt down, clinging to his ex-wife, as if it were the only thing he could rely on. He hadn't fully recovered from witnessing his father running in front of the truck. Jun Young was even more shocked to see his father embracing his mother. He decided to run away, ignoring his parents' cries. No one knew where he went after that. A year passed. Everyone had their own lives, but no one found true happiness. Sun Woo continued working at the hospital, while T.O. relentlessly searched for his son. Da Kyung started studying at a new school and chose to live alone, rejecting men who approached her. Yaris and Jollywood, who seemed to have the best ending in the film, ended up going their separate ways. She moved to another city and opened a small bakery. In an unexpected moment, Sun Woo met someone who brought back hope. It was her son, Jun Young. He had disappeared for a year, and his face wasn't clearly visible, but she was certain it was him. Sun Wu smiled brightly, her eyes shining with joy, and she couldn't contain her emotions.